Well, what an election it was. April 28th, 2025 federal election, and Carney wins Canada. Yeah, ultra thin, razor thin, minority government. I was going to say majority, no, ultra thin minority government. Well, we're going to talk about that next on the podcast, so stay tuned, buckle up, and just grab your coffee because we're broadcasting from beautiful British Columbia. Now, talk about that in a few minutes. Hello, everyone, and thanks for tuning in to PWD Allies podcast. My name is Brent Frayne. I'm the host. I'm broadcasting from beautiful British Columbia, Canada. It's nice and sunny out today, the sun will shine today after the post the election from April 28th, 2025. What a election it was. I mean, I'm speechless, really. Because of the results, I think a lot of pundits thought it was going to go another way, and it ended up being as a razor thin minority government, meaning Mark Carney wins the federal election as a minority government. Unfortunately, there was some casualties that were lost during the election, meaning the leader for the was the opposition party for the NDP, Jagmeet Singh, lost his seat, and he has officially put his resignation in and basically just thrown in the towel until they can find an interim new leader to replace him. We're going to be talking a lot about what happened in the election coming up on this podcast. But first of all, I want people to, tune in. If you're just tuning in now, listen to the podcast later on the audio version if you don't have time to tune in right now. But I want to thank my panelists for joining me today. First of all, I've got Dan Davies from Toronto, Ontario joining me.
Dan Davies?
The Dan Davies, no. The name was actually in my mind, but actually not Dan Davies, is Dan Trayes. Because Dan Davies, he was an awesome advocate.
Yeah.
But you know what? I'm sorry. I apologize for that. Just a brain fart there. But yeah, Dan Trayes from Toronto, Ontario, joining me.
And we just have him on the line.
And it's audio. I think there's some video stuff that's happening there. But I mean, I'm just tongue-tied.
And then we have MJ joining us as well.
Yeah, MJ, and he's from the Okanagan in British Columbia. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me. Sorry about that, Dan. One of those brain farts. Normally, I don't do that, but it was just I was thinking of some of the different MLAs and MPs.
I think all of our brains are baked after the.
It didn't get much sleep last night either.
All of our brains are just fried from the results of last night.
Yeah, please.
It's all good, Brent. Sorry, there's a delay.
Yeah, but thanks, gentlemen, for joining me today. Some longtime MPs in British Columbia and across Canada for the federal NDP lost their seats. First of all, I want to thank them very much for putting their names forward. And also I want to thank every single MP and any person who ran for federal office in this election. Thank you very much for putting your name forward. That's what democracy is all about, regardless on who you voted for, who you're hoping to get in. Because it really takes a lot of time and energy. I just want to thank everyone for putting their name forward because every vote counts, and we saw the results on how people voted. I mean, every vote did count. Yeah, it really came down, and they're still counting in British Columbia right now as we speak. for
Yeah.
a few different ridings that I guess they must have went up to midnight, and I guess they probably called it a night and said, "Hey, we're going to continue on in the morning." So first of all, I'm going to turn it over to Dan, not Dan Davies, Dan Trayes in Toronto, Ontario. What is your take on the election, Dan? What happened?
Well, don't worry about the name drop. It's all good. Personally here, thanks everybody for listening to us today. We're sure we're going to get into it. I've had personal quite the week. Saturday, I know MJ's going to love this, but Saturday I was at the airport hangar in Toronto, Ontario, actually Mississauga, to see the Mark Carney rally. I had to experience it, you know what I mean? And I agree with what some people say. This was not a vote for Mark Carney. This was not a vote for the Liberal Party. I think it was a vote against Trump and against, quite frankly, what we've been listening to from that little little person for the past few years. I personally wasn't really shocked at the results. Like I said earlier, the NDP party was fourth place in the last election, so him losing his seat didn't shock me. And I'm glad to say that our candidate here in Eglinton Lawrence, Vince Gasparo, who I had the pleasure of meeting with and working with door to door, won his seat, albeit it was by a very slim margin, but it was better than losing the provincial seat that he lost in the last election by 160. So yeah, my take on the election on a personal level is I don't personally really care who is prime minister, but I do want what's best for the country as a whole. And if we ever come to a day that a PC party has a favorable candidate that knows what they're doing and that will do the best for the whole country, I'm all ears.
Yeah, thanks on that, Dan. And I think that echoes to probably a lot of people across the country is what's best for the country. I mean, as long as the representatives are listening and they sent their MPs, elected MPs, out to in their community and their ridings that people voted for, as long as they're listening to the people's needs and they're bringing their voices forward to the House of Commons and representing and putting forward great ideas and policies, like maybe changing policies or working with the policies and making it a better country for all. And it's going to be interesting with a razor thin minority government on how long do they last. I mean, they're going to be propped up with probably a variation of different parties to keep them going, kind of pump up the wheels, I call it, yeah, with that, I'm going to turn the mic now over for the people listening on the podcast. I'm turning the mic over to MJ. Yeah, what is your take on what
wow. Wow. It's, I did, in my heart, I just knew that this is where we were going. I mean, see, now Pierre Poilievre, this is the fourth straight loss for the Conservative Party. And they've gone through, this will be the fourth, was it third, fourth leader, whatever it is.
Wow.
And it comes to a time where you're going to have to take a look at yourselves and, Pierre lost his seat. He had that seat for 20 something years. Wow. Now, what will happen if I understand, the standard practice will be one of the safe seats from the backbenchers in Alberta will be given up for Pierre Poilievre. And we'll go to an election to get him into the House of Commons as soon as possible. Now, until then, his deputy leaders will be running the show within the House of Commons. He'll be sitting in the gallery without a paycheck. Okay. Let's see. The People's Party was an absolute flop. Nobody, I'm going to actually, just for the conversation, let's get some actual numbers here.
Was there one other? I think there was one other. I forget. Don't know where the other was from though.
Well, let's see. The People's Party got less than 140,000 votes. The Bloc got almost 1.223. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
1.224 million votes just there. Quebec. Even the Greens only got 239,000 votes.
Oh,
right.
Okay.
Whoa.
So there was no other actually. There was the only one was for the Greens, and then there was 7 NDP. So I think for a short period of time there was one vote for other, and I guess it dropped off, or one seat for other, I should say, and then it dropped off. And I'm really sad to see Mike Morrice lose his seat. He was a very strong advocate for people with disabilities in Canada, so I'm really sad to see his seat go.
Yes, and over to you, Neil. What is your observation on what happened? I mean, I guess people say, "What happened?" Like, what is your personal observation?
Well, yeah, there's a couple of things. The first thing we can say is that, of course, the NDP really got hammered, and they really have to wear. I mean, they kind of deserved last night. Let's be honest, they kind of deserved last night. Because, I mean, that's my opinion. Because, I mean, basically they were propping up a dead government. Basically, they were propping up a dead government for over a year, at least over a year, right? Probably more. And so you had Jagmeet Singh that was propping up Trudeau, and I mean, Trudeau should have walked away way sooner, and Jagmeet was the one to keep propping him up. And I think people in Canada saw that. They saw that the NDP was just helping Trudeau keep alive. And
yeah, it's nuts. So even like, for example, when Trudeau ordered the unions back to work the first time, he waffled. And that showed the unions that the NDP no longer supports unions. They just waffled their union support.
Oh, yes.
Then the second time, like the first time, I think it was Canada Post. Then there was the trains. Then there was the ports. I can't remember what else there was. But like 3 times, he waffled and still supported the Liberal Party. And that showed that the unions looked at that and went, what happened here? Right. Yeah. So, and then when he kept supporting Trudeau, after that, that's when the party just went down in the polls. If you go back to the polling pre-election, you will see that their numbers were in the toilet. So it's just
there was an indication that they were already
made his bed.
Yeah, they were already going to be suffering. Yeah, and people showed it. Basically out the ballot box that.
They were pissed. A lot of people were out there pissed. There's a lot of protest ballots that we'll find out after in 30 days.
Well, actually, Polyev was a victim of protest vote ballot, because
the longest ballot people. Yes.
Yeah, it was like 90 people on the ballot or something.
Well, here's a question for Elections Canada. Does the law allow for a same individual to go nominate multiple people, multiple candidates? Because if it does, maybe it's a loophole that could be closed, because I'm betting anything that if you require this longest ballot group to get more signatures, because if it takes 100 signatures per candidate, they put almost 80 candidates or more on the ballot to stretch this thing out to as long as they could. And to me, if it was like one candidate, one nomination to one candidate, that would go, and I know it kind of force a party loyalty thing, right? But it would go and ensure that those that are playing these types of games that they did, they did in a couple of interim elections as well, that no, if you want to go and play this game, you need to get a little more sophisticated, right? And I understand their point in position. Let's talk about that. They want first past the post and eliminated in this country. Okay. And I personally think that it's a conversation that we need to have. Why is it that the parties, when they hold leadership elections, use ranked ballot voting in their own party for their own leaders, but it's not good enough for the rest of us in a general election? How about we pose that question, folks? Why is it good enough for them, but not for the rest of us?
Yeah, I mean, there's proportional representation, and on the media when I was watching the election results coming in, and that was a big topic that was brought up, is about proportional representation. I know Sonia Furstenau was the former leader for the Green Party in British Columbia, and she was one of the panelists that was actually on Czech News. Was so nice to actually see her actually on the one of the panelists on there, and her perspective was like, yeah, like the same. You keep getting the same results over, right? And if they had proportional representation, then your vote is going to go to that person, right? Rather than splitting the votes. And I think that was something that the former leader for the Liberal Party of Canada, Justin Trudeau, I think he wanted to. Apparently, well, maybe he didn't. I don't know, but
Yes.
said he wanted to.
He did say this would be the last election under first past the post.
Yeah.
Does anyone forget that one?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love these gems that we can pull out.
Yeah, exactly. And all said, "Oh, oops! Oh, we didn't get that done." Oh,
If you give me 30,
we did it again.
But if you want to give me a minute,
sure.
In order, just to go and explain this to people, in all the research that I've managed to figure out about changing the voting system in this country at the federal level, it does not, it might require a constitutional amendment using Section 43, which is a federal only amendment, right? Which allows the federal government, I believe it is, to go and change certain sections of the Constitution that only relate to the federal government. Well, that would mean that all they would have to do is just pass a law between the House, the Senate, and get the Governor General to sign it, and voila, we could have instant runoff voting system just like that. That's the name of the system that they use in the parties, by the way. So it's a very simple process.
So you don't even need a referendum. You don't need.
No, you don't need a referendum of the people.
Oh, wow.
See, the whole referendum thing in BC. Let's go back to that quickly for a second, since it's been brought up.
Yeah.
The province don't even need a referendum to change it either. Okay, they can just the provincial government pass a law, put it into the provincial constitution, and voila, it's done. So when people tell us, "Oh, it's too complex," "Oh, the people voted against it," "Oh, no," this is them passing the buck because they didn't want to take the ownership to actually solve the problem at the provincial or federal level. That's truly what it is. Let's not play games or be delusional to ourselves about what's really going on.
Yeah, and there's other countries around the world that have put the proportional representation in, and it seems to work quite well. I'm gonna put the mic over to Dan. Dan, here's a question, or maybe an observation for you. So, I mean, the federal NDP took a huge loss. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I mean, we all know that, maybe people just tuning in now or listening to the podcast later, they're going to say, "Oh, wow. Oh my gosh. Like, I didn't know that." Yeah, like in your area, I mean, I know that you went door knocking. I mean, when you were, I guess, when you were on for city council, right? When you did that, and you basically got to hear things at the door for yourself. Like, I guess the top things like affordability and stuff. Like, what did you hear on that level? And then I guess we can kind of put it into perspective is what happened with the federal election. I know that you don't know like a lot of, federal stuff, but in comparison of, like, what did you hear really of things that maybe needed to be changed? And do you think maybe that, I guess here's the question is, do you think that maybe that it just went beyond like closed ears or something? Like, yeah.
Listen, when it comes to the NDP, and I'm not being insulting. I'm just being the guy on the other side of the shoulder here. MJ knows the numbers, and I'm the asshole of the crowd, right? But with regards to the NDP, federally, they've done squat the past few years. Okay, Jagmeet has done a couple of things, but he's, been proven to suck. PP absolutely sucks, and Bernier is a loser that'll never form government, right? Ranked ballots are, quite frankly, and I hate to be a Debbie Downer, they're like the CDB. It's just lip service that it'll keep going on and on and on. I personally have been involved with the ranked ballot stuff for about 12 years now. It was supposed to come into effect here municipally this year. Or sorry, next year. By next year, October 26th, 2026 election, right? So I personally don't give any clout to people like Bernier. I definitely don't give clout to people like PP. And Jagmeet, I don't have nothing against personally. provincially and municipally here in Ontario, NDP are fine. They go for grassroots issues. They used to take care of the unions. I don't see them doing much of that anymore. But when push comes to shove, it's like some of us have always said, you have to go out and vote for who you think is going to do best for your community. Yesterday, I was door knocking until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So I actually do know a little bit something about the federal cases now. And a lot of people, and I'm going to be blunt, some might not like this, some might, I don't care. I'm just being honest. A lot of the talk was about like mass immigration. How can we bring people over and expect them to survive when they can't get a job? There's no homes or housing for anybody. And people were also focused on healthcare. And specifically, this is what caught my eye because I thought it was like a provincial issue. But people at the doors this time around for the feds, for Vince Gasparo, who's your new MP in Eglinton Lawrence, by the way, Mike Cole, people were more concerned about their family members being able to age in place and live at home. They wanted services provided for them, such as PSWs and stuff like that. So I think that's where we went over the edge in Eglinton Lawrence against Karen Stintz, because that PC party, anybody that runs PC here in Ontario, no matter what level of government it's for, are doing nothing but cuts, are doing nothing but letting your relatives die in LTC homes. And people have just had enough.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Dan. And, that's what I heard out in my neck of the woods too. It's like things that really affected people's well-being, like just their own personal life. Like what are they seeing? What are they seeing? What are they hearing? How things affecting them, and having the person represent their needs. And I think and nothing against the federal NDP or NDP. I mean, this is my opinion. Also, is the NDP. Obviously they're going to have to rebrand and figure out what went wrong. I know that as a disability advocate,
went wrong.
Yeah, exactly, and
from the get-go.
Yeah, when we see that the CDB, the Canada Disability Benefit, complete failure.
Well, can we back up a little bit, Brent, before we get to the CDB conversation? Sure. I just wanted to mention quickly though too the dental plan.
Yes.
That was a spectacular failure too, because we all know that a lot of dentists are, kind of threw up their hands about, and they're really balking at it, going like, why should we support this, right? So the whole dental plan idea was kind of a whole dog and pony show too. I think that should be said. So they really didn't stand for anything substantial. It was like, here's the dental plan, which none of the dentists across Canada support, but here it is.
I would have, if the government was going to go and say, okay, well, here's the deal, is we're going to go and figure out how much on average we're spending per person, right, for healthcare, right, or kind of average it out based on an aggregate of how much over the or the country or the province you're spending, and then say, okay, every person gets this much money per year for their healthcare costs that's covered by the government, right? And then the rest is on you, right? Right? Or if you want to go and pay for private insurance so you don't go into this money, right? And we're going to have to take a look at how we do a lot of things. Healthcare in BC, for example, has become a colossal failure. I have a doctor that I doubt I could get him to properly fill out my DTC paperwork. One of the reasons I was supporting the Conservatives because he was talking about going fast tracking people through. And that's one of the things I moved with, because I was like, okay, well, I can get behind that. And I'm one of these people, I'll pick a single topic or an idea and say, yeah, I can support him based just on that. Right.
One huge issue that the Conservatives tabled too, that no other party was tabling, was they were supporting ending the clawbacks. No other federal party was saying that.
Interesting.
Which is why that got my attention, of course, because I've been a staunch advocate against the clawbacks for over 12 years now. So yeah.
Well, yeah, and then the clawbacks. I mean, that's huge, and I mean that's what got my attention about the streamlining the DTC. Because I mean, I mean, when you're disabled in a province, you're disabled. You're a Canadian citizen. It should automatically go to every single person automatically. I mean, and that's the get go from day one. I mean, when Mike Morrice from the the former MP Mike Morrice from the Green Party, and that he advocated really hard on that, and he won that initially, right? As some of the conditions that were to be put in place, and then of course the bait and switch right away. The federal Liberals and the NDP. Well, yeah, I mean this is great. I don't know what went wrong, and I think that's obviously something that the federal NDP is going to have to look at and go, maybe we should have forced at the time. Maybe we should have forced the Liberals to actually do this, rather than change it. And I think a missed opportunity of allowing it to be put in as like it was $200, and then it was going to go up to 400. Well, I mean, the initial amount that it was actually had been put out there was a lot more than that, as we all know. And so I think that the government, it's like egg in the face, should we say, right? And I think they all have to work together a lot more.
Well, there's something else we can definitely be bringing up. Here's the thing. Is Pierre Poilievre's second in command, which is I can't remember what her name is. She supports UBI, right? And I know Mark Carney does support UBI. Now, my question becomes: will UBI become a conversation, or will a variation of it become a conversation? Now that Mark Carney is the Prime Minister.
Interesting.
Now, I know a lot of people out there sit there and they argue against the idea of some form of UBI or anything like that. But we've talked endlessly on the program about how dealing with workers and dealing with the employees of these ministries is absolutely no fun at all, to the point of where people just give up, right? And this is what creates the homeless situation. Now, if UBI is to be the replacement for all the benefit programs, they're going to have to get serious about it.
Yep.
And, and to me, I think that the cost savings of the administration over time, unfortunately, yes, jobs will be lost. This is the way life goes, right? But here's my question. If your job in government is to make other people's life more miserable, do you really need that job?
Yeah.
Right? Like, do you really need that job? If that's what your goal is, this is why a lot of people are looking at things like the automation of taxes, and like the CRA has one for every 750 people in Canada. Okay. Ooh. That's about 60,000 workers. That's insanity. For the size of Canada, there shouldn't be that level of CRA workers working within our governing system.
That's a lot of workers.
Right? Maybe one for every 5,000. But this type of bureaucracy is absolutely insane, especially when those of us that understand computers already know for a fact that most of the stuff can be done by computers, and with the advent of AI, can be audited by computers.
Well, I hate to say I'll let you know in on a little secret. Like, I don't know how many years ago, but I have shared before that I did spend about 7.5 years or so in provincial government as a public servant, and at one point near the end of my tenure, because I was looking for another position, I was offered a position in one of the social development offices as a caseworker. Mm-hmm. And I dropped it like a hot potato. I said, I am not doing that, because just like MJ said, do you really want to have a job to make other people's lives miserable?
Exactly.
I don't want to be in charge of that, saying I'm going to nickel and dime you for every last thing, and no, you don't deserve this, and no, you don't deserve that, and who cares if your rent's going up, and who cares this, that, and the other thing. I don't want to do that. So it's like, no, thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad that we were brought the topic regarding the UABI or like or a UBI, some kind of version of it, and I think that could be a real hot potato topic for our new minority razor thin minority government, because I mean, who knows how long they're going to last? I mean, they could last for 6 months, they could last for a year, 2 years. I mean, I think nobody wants another election anytime soon. What I want to see, I want to see the federal government, the federal Liberal government, Mark Carney's government, Liberal government, work with whoever is going to be propping them up and listen to the voices of the constituents from the elected officials who represent, who elected you in, your party in, and carry the voices forward of people with disabilities. Okay, now here's an opportunity for your government, sir, to listen to the voices. The previous administration, unfortunately, had that opportunity. They chose not to, right? We know that the Canada Disability Benefit was launched 5 years ago, and still it hasn't come to fruition, right? It's all bait and switch, played the game, delay, carrot tricks. And there was one of our panelists that we have on every so often. And I'll say his first name, and Joseph, if you're listening, you called it, man. You called it. So when we have our giveaway promotion coming up, which that'll be another podcast we'll be talking about, where Neil and I are working on something right now. But Joseph, you will be given something for your great idea, because you called it, man. You said that this is going to be an election issue, right? And guess what? We are now still at day one, right? Day one now is that Canada Disability Benefit. It's non-existent. My fear is that without a DTC, nobody's going to get it. Nobody's going to get it. Or the ones who do have the DTC, a small portion of the population. When I say small, I mean you're talking majorly small, and that's if they can even get that, because it's based on household income. It's based on household income, so it's not even per individual, up to $200 now.
And apparently, even if you do have the DTC, you still have to do a separate application.
And it's wasting piles of money, piles of bureaucratic bullshit, of doctors' times. And so, like, with the conservative government, when they came with that idea of streamlining it, I mean, something that Mike Morrice, the former Green Party MP for Kitchener, Ontario, he had come up with this idea that, yes, like, streamline it. I mean, you're disabled in your province, you're a Canadian citizen, give it to all. And I think that's all the provincial governments were waiting on, this historic program, so that they didn't have to raise the rates. So what I want to see is a UABI or a UBI, because MJ, you are 100% bang on this. These programs, they are so archaic. They keep people in legislated poverty. I think that's something that on our channel that we talk about, lived experience stories, and I think that we're bang on this, and I think that politicians have an opportunity of introducing something like this in and getting rid of these programs, because all that money that gets put into all these programs, it's redundant. I mean, it would save a lot of money overall.
One of the things that we, in the consideration for all of this is there are union contracts, and the union contracts would have to be paid out in full. Unfortunately, you made a deal. This is the way business works. You just can't, and there's no way that you could go and say, sorry, we're just going to fire y'all. We're not going to pay you. They'd take that to court, and they'd most likely win. So once you get one case that's precedent says, hey, you can't fire. Well, there you go. That's going to cover all these union workers across the country, in every province and every territory, and at the federal government. So all the union contracts have to be paid out. Now that costs a lot of money. It really does, right? Which means you'd probably have to go and work for a staggered transition on the province to province basis, right? And federally. So there's a lot of considerations in going and doing these things. The other option would be for the federal government to just arbitrarily just give the hot potato back to the provinces and say, well, we're going to give, my cat's deciding she wants to jump up here. You know,
we're going to give my cat,
the idea here is, with all of these things is simplifying the process. And, with all the advent of all the technology that we see coming out, and all the advent of all the conversation about a more streamlined government, we do have a man who is an economist as the prime minister. So he's a numbers guy. Okay. And when it comes to numbers, he's going to take a look at all the numbers. So we're going to see how many programs federally and how many ministries federally are going to go by the by. And I'm not joking when I say, like, I've already done the calculations. We could go with 8 federal ministries, maximum. And when it comes to all of this stuff, when we talk about UBI and we talk about downsizing government and all the rest of these things, we have to take a look at the consideration of what are we going to do with these people after their employment comes to an end in the federal government? And will they be on UBI too? Right? Will they get... Right? Will we be going from one side to another side of just moving them from being employed to just cashing a check? I mean, a lot of these people have education that's specific, very specific for their job within the government that has no relevant outside use in the private sector. Go ahead.
I wanted to roll back the conversation a little bit and talk about a what-if scenario, and I wanted to present it to the whole group here. Is like, because we were talking before we got on the podcast about, what if the Conservatives had done just a little bit better? Because I mean, when I went to bed last night, the Conservatives were up to they were at 150 seats. And the high water mark that they had, I think, at one point was 154. And I think to myself, like, what if they kind of were flirting around the 150 mark instead, and then the bloc could have played a much bigger role? Because now, like, this is my thing. I don't know if I've already said it or not, but this is my big disappointment is we're back to the NDP propping up the Liberal Party again.
But I think, Neil, the NDP is in disarray. They don't have a leader anymore. They don't even have an interim leader. I don't know if the deputy leader even got elected. I don't know who the deputy leader was. I haven't looked that up yet. Right. So they're in a state of chaos. So until they can figure out what they're doing, right now, it's technically still the bloc that's the player, right? And we have to go and consider the bloc either way, is because they can still swing votes. And at this point, I think he's going to operate with a mandate of consensus and trying to work for the best interests of Canada. Like I said, he's a bean counter. And being a bean counter, I think he's going to take a look at all the beans that were being wasted everywhere and start throwing those out, hopefully.
Yeah.
I'm hoping.
Because like when I saw the numbers like Neil saw last night, like there was like 150 versus 161. And some of the media were calling, CBC had called it like earlier on saying, oh, it's going to go this way. Then all of a sudden, the numbers started switching around.
There was a big push right at the end there, right before
they saw that the Conservatives were actually really gaining up, and they thought they were talking on the their panel on the news, and they're saying, well, what if the Conservatives all of a sudden change it complete around? People are going to say, whoa, what happened here? I mean, they were surging up. Then all of a sudden they started dropping down, and the Liberals started switching back the other way. So I'm going to turn over to Dan. And Dan, what is your take? What would have your view is if say the Conservatives all of a sudden quickly had got in all of a sudden, like what do you think the outcome like people's your view, like what in your community would have been like shocked or?
Well, you know what? The fact of the matter is they didn't.
Right.
They didn't. and the NDP is a player, like the Bloc Quebecois is going to form fucking Canadian government, right? It's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. You're right when you said earlier about a half an hour ago that we must work together, right?
Yeah.
But one thing is we need to put the focus on solutions. People need stability, right? Like we all know disabilities don't just go away with false hope from an elected official. One thing to bring up that is very like important to me, I think, that really sucks is I don't believe that you should be able to lead a party without having a seat in whether it's the legislature, whether it's the House of Commons or down at fucking City Hall. If you don't have a seat, you shouldn't lead a party. And the reason is, look what happens. Stephen Del Duca did it here a few years ago in Ontario. Guess what? He sucked. He didn't win a seat. The party didn't even win 20 seats. And he's now the mayor of Vaughan. You know, so candy is handed out at will. And that is a fucking problem when we're doing this every second year. That's why nothing gets done. That's why the CD, I wish the best for the CDB, but that's why I think it's going to come around probably about 2045 and all of us will be dead. So what good is it then, right? We need to come up with solutions now. And I don't care if you're a PC party person. I don't care if you're NDP, Liberal, well, NDP, 5 seats. I don't know. What are you going to prop up? Your own chair? Like without no disrespect, right? So I'm willing to listen to ideas, but I'm not doing stupidness. The fact of the matter is, PP sucked, he's gone. Jagmeet sucked, he's gone. That whatever happened to that second Green Party guy, I don't know what the fuck happened there. The only thing that did upset me about it is Mike Morrice, because we all know he's a great guy and he is a staunch advocate in the community. Other than that, the facts are the facts. We have a minority Liberal government. We have to work with it for the next 4 years, or else we're going to be talking about this again in 2030.
Exactly. Thanks on that, Dan. He echoed exactly what my thoughts were on that. Is solution based. I want to see solutions going forward from all the elected officials, regardless of whatever party is in. I want to see them work together, not just ideas, but solution based. I want to see actual solutions for persons with disabilities and their allies that are directly affected with people with disabilities across Canada. The opportunity was there before the other administrations were all in. Nothing got done. It was all talk, great ideas, solution going forward. I mean, how are you going to make life more affordable? I mean, affecting people's lives now, not in the future, not baby steps saying, oh, yeah, we recognize there's a problem. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. We've all heard that, you know, the old popsicle stand. Hey, would you like to have this one? Isn't that nice to have? Oh, sorry, we're sold out, but we'll get more later on. No, how about stock it up now? Find the solution, provide the solutions, people. It's not difficult. We saw the outcome of what happened when people don't listen. They don't listen. People now say they elect other people in because people are hurting across the country, right? They're saying, well, that party didn't do what I wanted. So they listen, they say, well, more about affordability, right? They shifted their votes. It was incredible to see how the votes did get shifted away. The sad part is that we took a loss of, some really good advocates. Some people may say, well, they weren't good advocates. They didn't stand up for people with disabilities. Well, I think that some of them did the best they could under certain situations. They were great advocates. Could they have done more? Oh, I'm sure that I'm not going to speak for them. I'm sure that yes, they probably could have. They did listen. They're very good listeners. Some of them did carry their voices forward and presented great solution based, like Mike Morrice, Benita Zarello. There's a lot of them that I think the opportunity was there. They wanted to accomplish a lot more. Unfortunately, the powers to be that not allowing them to make those changes, and we saw the results of what happened. People took it out on the candidates, the incoming candidates on that. Why? Because it was about affordability. People say, well, I'm suffering now. And so they chose a different candidate. And and that's fine. You choose, and that's a part of the democratic process. You choose a different candidate to better represent your community. Now, so that's that community, that person that's now elected, carry the torch forward, right? With the previous, MP that was actually elected in prior. So take those voices forward. How are you going to change representing your community? That's, I guess, a question I have out to the new MPs. How are you going to represent your community? For a person with disabilities, are you going to listen and actually find a solution like Dan mentioned? And thanks, Dan, for mentioning that, because that's something that we talk a lot about on the podcast. And I want to see solution-based. I don't want to see people suffering in legislated poverty. Poverty, it should not even exist. Why? Because it puts strain on our healthcare system. It puts strain on our justice system, which that also, I mean, Mark Carney, that needs to be addressed, changed.
Well, and since we spoke last, you know, let's not forget that since we're talking about healthcare and disabilities, and let's talk about mental health for a second, and acknowledge the tragedy that just happened in Vancouver. Because of an individual that should have been, I hate to say it, in a mental health facility, and they should not have been out in the public. This is what we see happening with the continued failures from our government, healthcare, federally, provincially. It's like the police are saying, well, this is a healthcare issue. The province says, well, we got nowhere to put them. Well, they closed down all the healthcare facilities for mental health in the provinces years ago, and they left all these people out on the street and said, well, they can be medicated at home. It'll save money. Well, no, this man had over 100 incidents with police. That takes time away from actually going and dealing with real incidents, because this individual should have been in a facility. Now, I mean, God rest those people's souls, because it just when you sit there and you look at this, when it comes to not listening to the people, this is a prime example. Now we have somebody that should have been in a healthcare facility out on the street committing a heinous crime.
I got a couple of things to say about that, of course, because I think everybody knows that I have a Filipino wife, and you know, and I've grown up around a lot of Filipinos, because my first wife with a disability, most of her care aides were Filipina or Filipinos, and so I've kind of been immersed in the Filipino culture for I don't know,
long time,
at least almost 25 years, you know. And I have to say too that my wife's son and his girlfriend were actually thinking about going to that. And so she was really shaken. Like they were almost going to go to that, and you know, and actually there's a couple people at her work that know some people that died. Well, there was one woman and one mother and her 5-year-old daughter that died, and then apparently there was a young father and his young son that died, or not died. Sorry, they're in the ICU. The father and son now are in ICU, and anyway, these are two people that are the four people, the mother and daughter and the father and son. These are four people that are known by a few people that my wife works with at a care facility. So they're really you know, hurting right now.
My condolences go out to the to the community and everyone that's been affected. It touched me very, very dearly. I previously worked with a lot of Filipinos before, and they're great people, they're wonderful people, and I mean, it's such a tragic event that should not have happened. It should not have happened. And you're right, MJ, on that. Like, I mean, solution based, like the justice system, obviously we know, I mean, it's completely shattered. Like, and of course, the previous administration, federal government, was tweaking it here and there, tweaking it here and there. Why not just fix the problem rather than keep tweaking things? Like, fix the problem. You know what? The provinces keep leaning out to the federal government saying, like, we need help. We need you to fix something here. because but that also the provinces need to take their part of the situation, and I don't know, like have to put more pressure on the federal government. I mean, jurisdictional stuff, right? But
Mm-hmm.
I was talking about a very basic thing with my friend Kent the other day. If he phoned me and we were talking about this, and we both said like, this guy had at least 50 convictions or prior instances with the police.
yeah,
MJ says 100, but I think it was 50 some odd, maybe more. But my point is, at what point do you take away the car, the privilege? Because a license to drive is not a right. A license to drive is not a right; it's a privilege. So how many instances do you have to have with the police before your privilege to drive is taken away?
Well, see, and that.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Go
Neil.
Go ahead, Dan. Sorry.
Yeah, it's just like I feel for the families as well. Heartfelt. It's sad, but I'm sick and fucking tired of giving condolences, because all condolences do is pause a solution to the fucking problem that's going on. Like last night, for example, after I door knocked all day, right? They happened to put me at a predominantly Filipino church to scrutineer, and I gotta tell you, I'm a pretty tough guy or asshole, whatever, but I was fucking scared. There was 3 cops there guarding the door. There was this, that, and the other. Like back in 2011, we here in Toronto, we had a cop run over and killed by a person with mental health issues with a snowplow. And what happened? This person was put into a hospital and was out in less than 4 years, right? Like yesterday, even, for example, I was on a main road with a sign, right? And I was doing my thing, waving, acting all crazy and shit. Half the people were honking horns saying, right on, way to go. I actually had a guy tell me, take that sign and yourself and throw yourself in front of a bus. You know what I'm saying? Just as an example, right? I don't take it, like, I don't give a fuck. Call me what you want, right?
yeah,
But the fact that people are thinking that way without trying to work together to come up with, like, it's mind-boggling.
There's a lot of underlying anger out here, and let's be honest. The underlying anger is, related to the fact that, we have a government who keeps expanding itself and now wants more and more and more tax dollars that doesn't go and offer solutions. Like the provinces are supposed to be going and handling mental health facilities. They've closed them all down. Okay. We have the federal government that's in charge of crime. And it's like, okay, when do we go and sit here and say, either you guys fix the mental health issue in your province or we're going to do it? And they can say, well, you don't have the jurisdiction. They'll say, well, we'll just change the Quarantine Act and just add mental health in it, right? Or some, it's I'm just using what the laws we have at the federal level, because there's specific laws that you have, and there's only so much jurisdiction you can use, and say, no, they'll be quarantined, right? And it just is, this is where we're coming to, is like, we have, plus, there's so many underlying issues. We could go for about another 6 hours talking about this. This is why I'm on X Spaces. I talk about a lot of these things, and there's a lot of considerations to fix things. So, in all honesty, Dan's right. It's getting tiring giving condolences to people when our government won't fix the problem. This should be a wake up to the NDP to go in the province of BC to go and say, hey, we need to go and get mental health facilities, and we need to get them opened, and we need to get them going now. Not yesterday, not next year, in the 6 months or 3 years from now.
Well, especially, I'm sure that you heard that they only have 10 beds available. Like, we got a huge, beyond crisis situation. I call it state of emergency, right? And the underlying problems, it has to be addressed. And it's just been neglected over decades. I mean, I remember just as a kid going downtown. I mean, I lived on the outskirts of our city where I lived, and I'd go down. I didn't see any homeless people. I didn't see anyone who was suffering from any mental health and addictions issues. No, nothing. I never even saw anything like that. I think it was a couple of years later I went down. I used to ride my bike down, just because I enjoyed being out and about, enjoying nature and just exploring around, right? And so I would go down, and then I saw somebody that was just sitting by a it was a retail store, it's a shoe store, and I was just sitting there on the pavement, right against the building, and that was the first indication there was a problem. And I stopped, and I thought maybe the person had fallen down, and they said, no, I have nowhere to go. Well, why? Well, I lost my place because of affordability. Well, I don't know what was, I didn't really get into a whole discussion. And then I started seeing over time a little bit more. And then I started hearing on the news, that, downtown east side, MJ, as you would know, Vancouver. Yeah. And of course, there was always that area that people would go to. Now, the reason why, there's a documentary, I think it was one that Neil, you had shared with that. Now, that was actually orchestrated, or now when I say, and people are probably shocked hearing that, it was orchestrated. And Sam Sullivan actually was part of that. He actually said they had deliberately dropped them off there because it was a safe place that people would call as their community.
Stop.
Well, gee, I mean, what could go wrong going forward? So the government said, hey, this works, status quo. That's what could go wrong. And then it blossomed across our country. Each city had its own little area. I mean, rather than fixing the problem, solution-based, you look at why is this happening? And, I've talked to people in my community, and they say, oh, well, they're homeless. I go, okay, so why is a person homeless? Now, there are many reasons why a person is homeless. They're just not homeless, they're in a tent. There's a reason. And so addressing the problem, I'm not an expert of saying I know the ultimate solution. I do know that one of the big solutions is poverty. So
is made.
Yeah. And so they say, well, here you go and get made. Here's the solution. But you tackle poverty, and really it starts to better the person's well-being and work with that person.
Well, here's the thing is I ran through ChatGPT to go and find the summary, because I asked for go and get me all the information on all these different UBI studies around the world. And one of the big things was mental health, physical health, less trips to the doctor.
Yep.
That was a big thing, which means that if a person that's disabled or whatever, or is poor even, is not going to the doctor as much, that reduces the cost on the healthcare system. Yep. So UBI in of itself has what's called derivative effects. And if you get rid of all the terms and conditions and just say, here's your money, have a nice day, right, as I suggest, right, then people will make the decision that's best for them. Like, okay, you're getting this money, great. You have extra money now, so okay. Neil says, oh, I want to go and get more equipment to do this show a little better and blah, blah, blah. You'd have the money to do that. Or same with you, Brent, or Dan's going, I need a new cell phone. Great. Now I can afford a new cell phone because this thing's falling apart.
Right.
Right. Or I can say I can afford to buy clothes, not at Walmart anymore. Right.
Exactly. You can go and support your, the different local stores, local small businesses, and people would have so many more options of choosing from, what better, better their health, better their well-being, their mental health, physical health. I mean, everything. It changes the whole dynamics. And I think the opportunity is there for the federal government now to look at that and listen to the voices with lived experience, and how it affects the individual, their families, their caregivers, everybody around them as allies, as PWD across Canada. And now I think it's just a wake-up call. I think it's a wake-up call to all levels of government saying, okay, what went wrong? How do we work all together? How do we find a solution base? How do we fix things for every Canadian? As Mark Carney would say in his speech, I'm here for all Canadians. Are you okay? Show me, I was going to say, show me the money. Like, show me that you're there for PWD to lift every single Canadian who's in legislative poverty out of poverty.
See, here's the thing. Here's a good question. How many people that worked in the disability ministry at the federal government before Mark Carney got in were actually disabled?
Yeah.
That is a good question.
right?
Apparently the MP didn't get reelected either. That one that was in charge of
No,
that.
I know. I was like, that was a little bit of a like a clap like this from me. I was like,
Yeah. I heard about that. I was like, uh-oh, whoops.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this the thing is, you know, we'll see what Prime Minister Carney does.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when he came in, he already immediately consolidated the down to 23 ministers from 38, I think 38 or 39 ministries that Trudeau had.
Mm-hmm.
That seemed pretty excessive. It was like almost a quarter of his elected members were, you know, or were in the ministry position. So
slash them right off. Just
yeah, exactly. So I mean, and when that slashing, yeah, it was a PWD position that did get slashed as well.
Yep.
Right. So, you know, I mean, to me, I look at it this way: is I believe that they need to simplify what they're doing for all these programs when, you know, if they decide to make that decision. But we'll have to wait and see what Mark Carney has to say. I missed his speech last night. Unfortunately, I am going to go and watch it again to see what he had to say. You know, unfortunately, I did miss it, and you know, because I was doing 20 other things, and I was in a space last night talking to some friends, and this is the thing is. Right now, we have people in Alberta that are screaming Alberta secession. They are, for the better words, they're pissed. They are livid, and they've had enough. And you know, unless you know Mark Carney is going to back away from the things he said in his book about going to a net zero system and going and quashing the oil sands and quashing majority of industry, if he's going to go with what's in his book, then yeah. But if he's going to backtrack on that and go and say we need to go and open up all industry to create better paying jobs across this country, because here's the thing, folks: better paying jobs pay more taxes, right? And even if we go to a flat tax that I've talked about before, is they'd still be paying more taxes. I mean, and then they have more money, you know, more money to put in their pocket. And this is the thing: is those of us on disability have been sitting here going and we've been yelling and screaming at the moon for I don't know how long about the government and the programs they've created that have now started working against our interests, right? The moment you decide, hey, I want to go and look at bettering myself in BC, like say going back to university, guess what? We get cut off. In Alberta, they don't, right? Right? And so this is how this provincial stuff goes and plays games. So this is why a lot of us have been looking to the federal government to go and actually go and solidify a program that solves all of this. Yeah.
It's one program versus a whole bunch of them where it's redundant. And you know that's the thing is I've been hearing on social media that people are saying, well, we're great. Now we've lost all of our MPs that were great advocates. Now who's going to be there for us? Well, you know, here's the thing, everyone. You know, there's newly elected individuals in those same ridings. You need to suggestion would be just to put a little bit of pressure on those newly elected officials and say, can you carry my concerns, my voices forward and be that great advocate, you know, and carry like the torch forward from the other advocate who is there representing your needs. So I mean, there's a lot of great advocates out there. I mean, sure, there was some great passionate ones that unfortunately they didn't make their way back in, but there's other great advocates out there too, and I think that's very important going forward. I think of having somebody representing their needs, of saying that they care, and I think putting pressure on the minority government and whoever's going to work with that minority government and saying, enough is enough. Like, this is what happened then. How do we fix things going forward? How do we, rather than just great ideas? I mean, because we know how great ideas work. Yeah, but it's like baby steps, right? So solution based going forward. I don't have all the ideas, but we can dogpile onto another podcast, and we can, yeah, definitely.
Maybe we need to create an NGO. That's what we
yes,
need.
yes, we do.
Yeah, we are at the end
Right.
of the end of the hour, so I don't know if you wanted to run.
I'm going to I'm going
closing
to
comments for
over
everyone.
to Dan. So Dan, what is your whole observation, I guess, on our closing statements for just what happened in general, idea or solutions? What would you like to see as a solution based from our federal government working with provincial counterparts going forward?
All I can say is 5 out of the 6 last campaigns that I've helped have won. And the reason why I've chosen those people is because they actually do shit in the community. You know, yesterday I was walking up, it's called Bathurst Street here in Toronto. It's the Jewish area of Toronto. And I saw a woman in a bus shelter, you know, living. And I'm not just talking with a pillow and a blanket. I'm talking she had fucking shelves, a chair, a little mini couch, the whole 9 yards.
Oh,
So
wow.
right away, I called here what's called 311. And I said, hey, listen, there's a woman obviously in distress here, needs some help here. Can we get her some help up here? And a person on the other end of the line that makes 6 figures and probably works hard for their money told me, no, we can't. There's no beds, but we're well aware of her.
Oh.
So if you're well aware of her, fucking do something, right?
Exactly.
The staffers make 6 figures. And on top of that, MPPs in our area make about $2,300 for rent. We're not going to give people a UABI, a UBI, an RGI unit, anything like that, but they get $2,300 to watch us die on the streets. And that's the problem I'm having lately. And like you guys have said through the whole program, you got to get involved. You got to work together. I don't give a fuck if you're PC, Green, or even that idiot that calls himself PPC party or whatever. He's stupid. He'll never get in government. But the real people that want to work together and achieve, whether it's a UABI or housing, those are key, because we could sit here for another hour and I can list you every single reason why somebody would be homeless. There is a plethora of it. It's because nobody gives a shit and everybody's turning a blind eye. Enough of talk about it. Fucking do it. It's that simple.
Well,
Yeah.
you know, one of the questions I have, and I will pose this, is my closing thought on this. How much worse does this country have to fall down before we stand up together and say enough is enough?
Yeah.
How much more do we have to go and allow this country to turn into a country that we don't recognize because we've imported crime, we've brought, we've left the mental health disabled people out on the street. They're committing crimes to try to survive. People are, crime is up around the country because the government won't fix the poverty issue. And that's the biggest problem. Mm-hmm. They've created the poverty, which creates the crime, which goes back and cycles through again and again, which then increases the amount of money we spend on our criminal justice system because we won't fix poverty. Yeah. That's another thing that needs to be talked about, is when you go and have a UBI in some form, more and more people are less likely to commit crimes to get money.
Well,
thank you on that.
And that's it too. Is like, I think the danger sometimes is when we talk about crime or we talk about the drug supply issue, safe supply, and all that kind of stuff. There's a tendency to stigmatize it. There's a tendency to, like, I know that, of course, what happened with the Lapu Lapu festival too. I mean, you can say, well, it's a criminal act, which it was, and the police are involved with that, of course. But at some point, you have to kind of roll it back and realize that it really is a people issue, that people need to be supported by people. As soon as people aren't supported by people, that's why you get the police involved. I mean, the police shouldn't be the solution to that. It should be that person that committed that act should have been supported first by another person or persons, mm-hmm. right? Or
a facility.
Or a facility or something, yeah. Like like the end result shouldn't always fall on the police to fix problems that they really,
They can't.
They can't solve it, right? I mean, the solution starts with people helping people.
Yeah.
Really, right?
Well,
Go ahead. Sorry.
The solution is we do need mental health facilities. This is the bottom line. We do need criminal incarceration facilities, right? But what we should be doing is trying to make sure that people with mental health issues don't end up within the criminal system, because if they can get the mental health supports, or they end up going and living in a facility that gives them that safe, controlled environment that lowers their anxiety, stress levels, and just gives them a safe space to live in, then yes, we need to go and take a look at all the answers and all the problems, and stop sitting here going and picking and choosing which problem we address and which problem we ignore.
Yeah. Thanks on that, MJ. And my closing comments pretty well a blend of what Dan mentioned and what you mentioned, MJ, and what Neil's mentioned. Like it's a revolving door. Like you look at how, like, poverty, mental health, I mean, not enough housing, like of housing affordability. I don't even call it a crisis. I call it a state of emergency. And I think that's what the government should really look at it. Not even just an inconvenience. At one time, it used to be just like an inconvenience. Oh, you're having trouble finding it. Now it was a crisis, they call it. I call it a state of emergency. Let's call these things a state of emergency. And that way, basically it forces the government saying, okay, we got a serious problem on our hands across our nation, our beautiful country. And I will say, it is a beautiful country. I mean, so much natural resources we have across. I mean, anyone who hasn't been to the west coast of British Columbia, beautiful mountains. We've got beautiful, tall trees. Mountains. It's so beautiful. But the country is not beautiful.
Dan's
right?
here, but we can say the west coast is the best coast.
Yeah, but but it's true though. It says we have a beautiful country. It's how do we fix the problems in our society? Look at the solution of how do we address all these issues. Police, having more police on the streets is not going to fix the problem. Look at the underlying reasons of what's happening. It's a cycle of poverty, and that'd be one of our topics we're going to be diving into coming up soon. Do you want to basically put a little blurb out there, Neil, at all for like a I guess as a editorial thing of one of our shows at all, or one way? But what we talked about, the PWD, the Allies.
I'm drawing a blank, Brent.
Oh, focus.
Focus. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're thinking about doing a kind of a condensed version where, it's still kind of being shopped, but this idea that at least the way I envision it is we'll basically answer one question per episode, and it might be like a 10 to 20 minute episode where we answer one question and one question only, and just drill down on one question, and basically have a guest or two come on, and it'll be a really focused thing of like one question about housing and affordability or something, and only deal with that and no other questions on just that one question, and that's it. And I think most of the segments should probably run 15 to 20 minutes maybe, and so it'll be a really kind of condensed version of this, but we still have to kind of shop it. We're looking at that.
Well, I'd be down for that.
Yeah, and definitely and we're going to call it focus on one topic only, and
a lot of our in focus or something like that.
And a lot of our episodes are kind of like different topics, and we kind of blend into other things, and then it becomes a whole great.
Right. So in other words, it's kind of be like, okay, one question, you have a panel of, we'll say 3 or 4 people, you give a 2-minute answer, and then we're out.
Yep.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And whatever the topic will be on that episode, it will be just that topic, nothing else. So Brent has to discipline himself and say, nope, that's.
And I've already kind of thought that it would be a pre-record, so I could add titles to it too, and cut it down. In case you do go over, we can cut it down, and I might not even be on. I'll just be the guy behind the curtain again, pulling the strings, and it'll be you and a guest, or you and a couple of guests, and we'll just focus on just the one question, and have the one question put down at the bottom of the screen. So we're answering this, and then we'll spend 5, 10, 15 minutes, and then out.
Well, I thought it was a bee flying by me, but it was actually a fly. It was visiting right by my ear. So. Imagine that, right? Live on there. Wow. Yeah. Focus, Brent.
It was a pink unicorn giving you a kiss.
It was right here. Unicorn, and and they're going to be running amok, and that's why we need to squash these pink unicorns for federal.
Well, one thing that we need to go into be thankful for is we actually did get to vote. There are people in the world that do not have a chance to go and vote for the leaders, and they live in absolute tyrannical dictatorships. And
very true.
And these people are forced to vote for one party, and it's kind of like you're just giving, tacit approval to keep the dictatorship going.
And we didn't have to vote for the orange man. Well, no,
Jack means thing lost. So
no, I'm talking about Trump.
Oh, he was wearing an orange turban the other day. So
I'm talking about orange Trump. Orange Trump.
He's become the Canadian orange man. So sorry.
No. Whoops.
But yes, we have that right to vote, and it still saddens me that so far the numbers show about 9 million people chose not to vote in this past election.
Wow.
And, in the previous one was 10.3. And
quite a few.
We had an entire weekend that you could have taken to vote. Those people that didn't vote. In my town, they chose a absolute disability accessible location. It met about a dozen requirements for disability, for disabled people to be able to get there and to be able to go and vote. And, when it comes to this, we have to be thankful that we do have this right to vote, because there are people out there that don't, and they never will. And this is why when they come here to this country, they're very thankful. And
it was really quick too. I think I shared too. I didn't even get my card this year. I don't know why. I didn't get a voter's card. But I went down with a couple pieces of ID. I just needed one piece. But you go down there, and it was they spend 20 seconds to verify on their sheet. There you go. You go behind. You mark your ballot. In 3 minutes, you're in and out.
Yeah. And I mean,
unless you hit the lineups.
Yeah.
Right. And this the thing is, I wish more Canadians would take that right to vote seriously. And who knows, another, I don't know, 2 or 3 million people. Who knows how the election could have turned out if another million people had actually chosen to vote. We don't know, because you chose to stay home. This is what we have to work with.
Yep.
And this is what we have to deal with.
Every vote counts, and it only takes a couple minutes, if that. I mean, if there's no lineup, I mean, you can be in and out there. One of my neighbors said I was in and out of there within a minute and a half. She timed herself, minute and a half, folks. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. And she had no voting card either. I heard that some people weren't getting voting cards, other people did. And you just show ID. That's it. And walk in.
I don't know why I didn't get one this year. It was weird.
And you just look down that sheet. Oh, there you are. Okay, yeah, go ahead. Mark the ballot, and they put it inside another envelope.
Well, let's bring Dan in here. He keeps unmuting his microphone, I see.
Yeah.
Well, I actually just keep hitting the wrong button. But what I will say is that it should be fucking mandatory voting.
Yeah.
And you get a total, I don't know about you guys out there in BC, but here in Ontario, we get a total of about a week to 10 days to vote. There's no fucking excuse.
Yeah.
No excuse. There's mail-in voting. There, you can drop it off. There's no fucking excuse. All it is laziness, or that they're not educated enough to vote. Quick example before we go. Yesterday, I was in a community that's predominantly low-income housing. I had a lady who identified as a Somalian woman who was obviously Muslim, wearing a hijab. And she pointed at my guy's card And she said, I voted for him, but I don't like him. She goes, did I make a mistake? I said, what party do you like? She said, the Liberals. I said, then how did you make a mistake if he's a Liberal? Then she understood. We need to educate, but for the people that have been here and done here, there's no more excuses. And we proved that last night, albeit a minority. We got to give him the time, like MJ has said earlier about some things. Give him the time. Let him either sink or swim, and then you take it from there. To go back to like, oh, back in the day of Kathleen Wynne and John Chrétien and Paul Martin, who gives a fuck? They're not there. Yeah. We got to deal with the folks we got now.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, every vote counts, and advanced voting in every jurisdiction across the country. There was ample enough time. I know every province had advanced voting, so there was no excuse not to vote. So we say, "Oh, my vote doesn't count. Why bother?" One of my neighbors said, "I said, why bother?" I said, "You have that democratic right to get out there and vote. I mean, regardless if your party that you choose doesn't get in, you could say, yeah, I voted." And because otherwise they just start bitching, complaining. Oh, so-and-so got in. Well, did you vote? No. Well, then what do you have to complain about, right?
Well, I mean, I don't know. A lot of people have jumped on the idea of George Carlin of saying of his thing. If it's, I don't vote and, I didn't put them there, so I have every right to complain. Well, right. And I believe that, Dan is right. Voting should be mandatory.
It should.
I personally believe that we should also have the option on our ballots at the very bottom to vote none of the above. If you don't like any of the candidates that are being offered, you still are voting none of the above.
Voted. Yeah, you still voted, and and I still would love to see proportional representation brought in. That should be on the voting card too. Do you support that? Imagine that as an option.
Well, it'd be, here's the thing with ranked ballot voting, IRV, instant runoff voting, which the parties use internally. And I'm going to bring this back up just quickly.
Yeah.
You can go and put an X for that candidate that you want, or you can go and list them by number. You'll have that choice, and it'll be explained inside the voting square or triangle, wherever that you vote, of how to go and vote. They give you clear and concise instructions. Mm-hmm. So the apathy, folks is saying, oh, well, none of them represent me. None of the parties represent me perfectly. Mm-hmm. All the parties represent me partially. That's the funny thing.
Yeah. And isn't that true? And that basically shows that they can work together in so many different topics.
Yeah.
I want to thank everyone for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. There was a lots to break down, always lots to talk about. Stay tuned for our next episode. We'll be diving into whatever topic that may be, but also our new. Watch out for our new. Our new program that we're going to be launching. We're just fine-tuning a few details on it, and it's going to be in focus. And it will be in focus on a specific topic.
Here's another name I thought about is, instead of in focus, focal point or something like that.
Focal point, but it'll be definitely focused on a specific topic, only one topic, that episode, and that will be it. Yeah. So stay tuned on that part. Please subscribe, like, and share. It really helps our channel grow. Buy us a coffee. Just click that like there, and just down in your comment section, you'll see a little dollar sign there. Just click on that, and it really helps our channel a lot. I really appreciate everybody tuning in and enjoying our content. We try to come up with new ideas. If you have any suggestions for future shows, what you'd like to see, would you like to be a guest on the show? Reach out to Neil. We'll do our best.
I'm looking at the stats for today, Brent, and the stats say that there's been 467 views already.
Whoa. Yeah. So, I know that the previous episode that we had for the election,
over 700,
that was really clocking up there. Yeah. I think that these different shows, whatever really gets that person's attention grabber, it really gets their attention. How it affects your life. As a person with disabilities, there's so many reasons why it happens. It can happen to anybody at any time. We talk a lot about that. But stay tuned for other episodes coming up in the near future. Opportunity will be there for you to join. So thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in, and thanks to my great panelists that I have on. You guys are awesome. I always enjoy having you on, Dan,
and your great producer.
yeah, MJ and Dan, and my great producer as always. You guys give a lot of great insight and feedback. And I love the theme, solution based, ideas that put things into motion. Great discussions as always. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Have a great day. And signing out from beautiful Victoria, British Columbia. Until next episode, take care.
Cheers.
Take care.